There were things you knew growing up black that nobody ever explained and nobody had to. You knew how to read your mama's face from across the room. The way her jaw shifted slightly to the left when she was about to say something she couldn't take back. You'd be sitting on the couch, legs tucked under you, pretending to watch TV, but really you were watching her reflection in the screen. The air would get thicker. You'd already be calculating whether to disappear into your room or stay frozen exactly where you were. Sometimes you'd catch your sibling's eye and you'd both know move slow, speak soft, don't ask for nothing right now. There was a specific smell inside your grandmother's purse. Peppermint, leather, church fan paper, and something else you couldn't name, maybe powder, maybe thyme. You'd be standing next to her in line at the store, and she'd dig through it for what felt like forever. Loose receipts, a comb, Kleenex folded into small squares, a roll of certs, maybe a dollar bill folded into a tiny square tucked in the side pocket. She never rushed. You learned not to rush her. Sometimes she'd pull out a piece of candy and hand it to you without looking down, like she knew you were hoping for it the whole time. You knew not to touch the good spoons. They sat in a drawer wrapped in soft cloth, and you'd only see them on holidays or when certain people came over. The weight of them felt different in your hand, heavier, colder, more serious somehow. You'd hold one once, just to feel it, turning it over in your palm, and put it back exactly how you found it. Nobody said why they mattered. You just knew. Same with the good plates, the good glasses, the tablecloth that only came out twice a year. Sunday mornings had a sound. The house smelled like grease and soap and something sweet baking. You'd hear your mama moving around the kitchen before the sun was all the way up, pans clanging soft, water running, her humming something low you couldn't make out. Gospel might be playing on the radio, turned down just enough. You'd lie in bed listening, knowing you had maybe 10 more minutes before she called your name. The light coming through the curtains would be that early gold color. You'd stretch and pull the blanket tighter, stealing the last bit of quiet before the day started for real. You learned how to be still in public. Sitting in the waiting room, the store, the lobby, you'd fold your hands in your lap and make your face blank. Not sad, not bored, just neutral. Your mama didn't have to say it twice. You could feel her awareness on you like a second skin, and you knew that how you moved reflected on more than just you. She'd give you that look not angry, just firm, and you'd straighten your back, uncross your arms, soften your face. You became good at disappearing while still being visible. There was a bottle of something on the counter that wasn't for drinking. Blue Magic, Sulfur 8, coconut oil in a jar with a label peeling at the edges. You'd sit on the floor between someone's knees, head tilted down, while they parted your hair in rows. The smell would hang in the air, thick and specific. It hurt sometimes, but you knew not to move too much. They'd say tender-headed like it was a diagnosis. The comb would scrape your scalp, and you'd wince, and they'd say, almost done, even though you both knew there was still half a head to go. When it was finished, you'd touch the back of your neck and feel the neat parts, the tightness, the care. And there's more you didn't say out loud. You knew which friends you could bring home and which ones you couldn't. Not because of anything specific, just a feeling. Some people's houses had a different rhythm, and you couldn't explain what made yours different, but you knew. The way certain friends talked to their parents. The way they walked through their own house. The questions they'd ask that felt too direct. You'd meet them outside instead. Keep certain worlds separate without ever naming why. Your mama never asked. She just knew too. There was a way your daddy would lean back in his chair after work, one hand on his knee, eyes half closed but not asleep. The TV would be on, but he wasn't really watching. His work boots would be by the door, unlaced, the smell of outside still on them. You'd walk past him quiet, trying not to make the floor creak. Sometimes he'd catch your eye and nod once, and that was the whole conversation. Other times he'd pat the arm of the couch and you'd sit next to him, both of you staring at the screen, not talking, just being in the same room. That was enough. You knew what "we got food at home" really meant. You'd be in the back seat watching the Golden Arches or the pizza spot go by. and you already knew not to ask. The silence wasn't mean. It just was. You'd get home and eat whatever got put in front of you, and it tasted fine. You stopped asking after a while. Sometimes you'd make yourself a sandwich and sit at the table, and your mama would walk by and touch your shoulder, just once, light, and keep moving. No words. But you felt it. There were conversations that stopped when you walked into the room. Adults, mid-sentence, and then a look. And then the subject would switch so smooth you'd almost think you imagined it. You'd stand there holding your glass of water, and someone would smile at you, and you'd know you weren't supposed to have heard what you didn't hear. You'd pour your drink slow, listening to the new conversation, the one they built just for you to witness. Later, you'd hear pieces of the real conversation through doors, on phone calls, in the car when they thought you had headphones on. You learned how to make yourself smaller without shrinking. In the store, you'd keep your hands visible, touch nothing you weren't buying, make eye contact with no one. You'd move through the aisles like you were being watched because you were. Nobody told you this explicitly. You just knew the weight of eyes and what it cost to be careless. You'd see your mama doing it too, hands on the cart, face pleasant but unreadable, moving with purpose. When you left the store, she'd exhale like she'd been holding her breath the whole time. There was a jacket or a pair of shoes that got passed down through 3 people before it got to you. It still had life in it, still fit fine, and you wore it without complaint. You knew what it meant when your mama said, "That'll do." Not because it wasn't good enough, because it was enough, and enough was what you had. The jacket would smell like whoever wore it before, and eventually it would start to smell like you. You'd wear it until the zipper broke, or the sole came loose, and then it would disappear, and something else would show up in its place. You kept going. You knew the difference between company and family. Company meant cleaning up, sitting up straight, speaking when spoken to. The good towels came out. The living room got vacuumed twice. You'd be told to stay out of the way, but be ready to say hello when called. Family meant you could fall asleep on the couch and somebody would throw a blanket over you. You could walk in the kitchen and fix a plate without asking. You knew who required which version of you before they even walked through the door. There were questions you learned not to ask about money. You'd hear your mama on the phone, voice tight and low, talking about a bill or a date or a maybe next month. You'd be in the next room, but you'd hear it all. The way she'd say, "I understand," in that tone, that meant she didn't have a choice. You never brought it up after. You'd just stop asking for things for a while. Not because you were told to, because you knew. When she'd come off the phone, her face would be smooth again, reset, and she'd ask if you were hungry. You remember the feeling of someone braiding your hair too tight and sitting there anyway. Your scalp would be screaming, but you'd only say "ow" once, maybe twice, and then you'd stop. Because the person doing it wasn't trying to hurt you. They were trying to make it last. You'd walk around for days with your edges pulled back, touching your temples gently, waiting for the soreness to fade. When someone said, "Your hair looks nice," you'd smile and say thank you, and mean it, because you knew what went into it. You knew the hours, the care, the pulled tight love. You knew how to act when the police drove by. Even as a kid, you'd see the car slow down and everything in you would go still, not because you'd done anything, just because you'd learned to make yourself unremarkable. You'd keep walking steady, face forward, and not look back until the car turned the corner. If you were with your friends, everybody got quiet at the same time. Nobody had to say it. You'd all just know. And after it passed, someone would make a joke, light and quick, and you'd all laugh too loud, shaking it off. There was a dish that only got made on special days, and you didn't ask for it any other time. Somebody's mac and cheese, somebody's greens, somebody's sweet potato pie that took all afternoon to make right. You knew it took time, took effort, took something that couldn't be rushed. When it showed up on the table, you said thank you, and you meant it. You'd eat slow, savoring it, because you didn't know when it would come around again. And when people asked for the recipe, the answer was always, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, because some things weren't written down. They were just known. You learned that love didn't always sound soft. Sometimes it sounded like, "You better not," or "I'm not going to tell you again," or "because I said so." It came with a look that meant more than the words did. You knew the difference between anger and protection, even when they sounded the same. When your mama grabbed your arm in the store and pulled you close, her voice low and sharp, you knew she wasn't mad at you. She was scared for you, and that made you more careful. There was a song that could stop everybody mid-motion. It had come on the radio or at the cookout, and suddenly every adult in the room would know the words. They'd sing it loud, off-key, eyes closed, smiling at nothing. You'd watch them become younger right in front of you, their shoulders loose, their faces open. Somebody would start dancing, just a little two-step, and somebody else would join in. You didn't know the song yet, but you'd remember this moment when you heard it again years later, and you'd close your eyes too. It didn't end. It just kept layering. You knew how to translate your mama's tone for your friends. When she said, "We'll see," you knew that meant no. When she said your full name first, middle, last, you knew you had about 10 seconds. When she got quiet, you knew that was louder than yelling. You became fluent in silence and shifts, and the small adjustments in air pressure that meant everything. Your friends wouldn't catch it, but you would. You'd already be apologizing before she said a word. There were nights when you'd hear somebody praying in another room, words low and steady, like they were talking to someone who was listening close. You'd lie in bed and hear it through the walls, not all the words, just the rhythm, the rise and fall, the pauses. It felt like a blanket over the whole house. You didn't interrupt, you just let it cover you too. Sometimes you'd add your own thoughts to it, quiet in your head, hoping they'd get carried up the same way. You knew that certain things didn't get thrown away. A butter container became Tupperware. A jar became a cup. Aluminum foil got folded and reused until it couldn't hold a shape anymore. Bread bags became gloves for greasing pans. Ice cream buckets became storage. You didn't think of it as being poor. You thought of it as making sense. Waste wasn't an option when everything had another use. When you opened the cabinet and saw a Cool Whip container, you knew it wasn't dessert inside. It was leftovers, or buttons, or rubber bands. You remember the exact texture of the couch you sat on while waiting for your mama to finish talking to her friend. The plastic cover that stuck to your thighs in the summer made that sticky sound when you shifted. The rough fabric underneath if you pulled it back. You'd sit there for what felt like hours, staring at the same picture on the wall, the same fake flowers on the table, the same TV on mute with the captions running. You'd listen to them laugh about something you didn't understand yet, their voices rising and falling like music. You didn't complain, you just waited. Eventually, you learned to bring a book. You knew that some things your family did weren't up for debate with outsiders. Certain foods, certain sayings, certain ways of being that didn't need defending. If someone asked, "Why do you do it like that?" you'd just shrug, not because you didn't know, because they wouldn't get it even if you explained. You'd smile polite and change the subject, keep what was yours, yours. There was a moment when you realized you'd been holding your breath in spaces where you should have felt free. At school, at the store, in neighborhoods that weren't yours. You'd come home and close the door behind you and feel your shoulders drop. The exhale was loud. Your mama would look at you from the kitchen and nod once, like she knew exactly where you'd been and what it cost you. You didn't have to say it. She'd lived it too. And you're still here. If you felt this, you already know. You don't have to say it out loud. But if you want to, if you need to, you can. We're still listening.